This is a video that I've been wanting to do for a while. The insanity of this world is monumentally unfathomable. See, this is what happens when you have the internet and social media and TikTok and Instagram. Like I said, everything is energy. You don't realize the destructive power of the negative elements of evil that are embedded in these waves of energies that you are exposing yourself to and bombarding your subconscious mind with. Because the internet told you you could be a man and a woman at the same time. You can be. The internet told you you could have clothes that look like they're painted on you and go to a gym and bend over in front of a guy, and if he just glances at you for a thousandth of a second, he's a creep and a pervert and a rapist and a murderer. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. I mean, I hope everybody understands this is all coming from the same clique that's got the woke agenda, the BLM agenda, Antifa, all that stuff. It's all coming from the same spot. Anything they can do to disrupt peace and destroy positivity and eradicate the light, it's all coming from the same place. Because that's all they do. That's what the darkness does, because that's what it's here for. It's supposed to disrupt the light. Only the malevolent levels of it. But when I was a kid back in the 70s, I'll tell you what we didn't have. We didn't have ADHD. We didn't have allergies to wheat. We didn't have any of this stuff. It didn't exist. Why? Because the internet didn't exist. None of this ever existed back then. Did allergies exist back then? Of course they did. To this extent? Oh, God, no way. No way. It's the internet that's causing you to believe that you can do whatever you want because the internet's telling you. Because you can't think for yourself. This is what happens when you give your control over to something else. Especially something that's satanic in nature. And something that's malevolent. It doesn't have your best intentions at heart because it doesn't have a heart. It's heartless and cold and dead inside. You think they're going to honestly lead you into something of a higher elevated platform of learning, intelligence, and awareness? No, they're taking you in the opposite direction. They're dumbing you down. You can't even think for yourself. You don't even speak full, complete sentences anymore. You communicate with abbreviations. People don't even have face-to-face conversations, eye-to-eye contact. They don't even bother establishing eye contact in conversations anymore. You have the conversation with the side of somebody's face while they're looking at their cell phone. And if you do have a conversation with somebody, what is it? It's always media-based garbage. They're dumbing you down for a reason. This isn't just happening by coincidence or randomly or just by chance. This is an agenda. Let's get that straight. They're not going to take this country over by rockets and bombs and missiles and grenades. They're going to do it from the inside out. They're going to wait for the older generations, the generations older than myself plus myself, to die out. And then what's left? The youth that are totally just raised on technology. All you know is staring at a screen your whole life. I'm not from that era. We had Saturday morning cartoons, and that was it. It came on like 7 o'clock in the morning, I think from 7 to 1, and then that's it. What did we do? We were outside with something called actual reality. Ooh, we were actually making memories and having great experiences and being kids. Having fun, going to the lake, riding our bikes, whatever we were doing. We were actually enjoying nature. We were outside. The last place you'd ever catch us is inside. The time that we were supposed to be inside, when we saw those street lights come on, you better get your butt home. That's the way it was back then. The good old days were a heck of a lot better than they are now, and I feel so bad for these kids. What is it that you don't see these days? You don't see kids outside playing around anymore because they're too busy inside staring at screens, rotting their brain cells. That's exactly what's going on. Look at TikTok, for God's sake. I mean, you can't even wrap your head around this stuff. You can't even make this up in a bad B movie, low budget. And this is actually happening. Look at the nightmare that's going on in the gyms. These poor guys just want to work out. If they just glance over at some chick's area for a thousandth of a second, he's a rapist and a pervert, and he should be thrown in jail. And she's making these bogus videos, throwing them up on TikTok. That's crazy. I mean, come on, man. All of this, by the way, this is going to collapse at some point. It's going to collapse. It can't keep sustaining itself like this. But then again, that is the intention of this cult, what they do. Anything to destabilize stability and compromise the structural integrity of the moral fibers of society. That's exactly what they're doing, because they're doing it very well. Why? Because this younger generation cannot think for themselves. Like I said, The minds of the few control the minds of the many. When everyone is thinking the same, nobody's thinking at all. And that's clearly what you have here. I have personally witnessed over the last 5 decades the collective intellectual level of this planet slowly devolve to such a deteriorated degree that very few, if any, possess the cerebral capacity for self-thought, let alone self-action. There are literally no proactive, autonomous thinkers anymore because everybody's plugged into the hive mind mentality. Your internet, your social media, it's pumping toxic sludge into your subconscious mind, programming you to be mindless and a follower and a drone. That's exactly what it's doing. And it's telling you, yes, you could be a man and a woman at the same time. Men can have babies. I mean, for God's sake. Really? You know, I mean, I could debate that real quick. If you're a man and you think you're a woman, well, biologically, anatomically, physically, genetically, check your pelvic bone. That'll tell you what gender you are, and you can't dance around that because that is the anatomical truth, and that's a medical fact. But I know at some point they're probably going to try and make that just go away like it never existed. But until that time, it does. So that one's on the books as an absolute established fact. Try to dance around it. Go for it. If you got a couple hours to waste, give it your best shot. You won't be successful. Moving on. I mean, it's to the point now we have people that can't even look at each other anymore. And you don't understand why that's happening? Well, okay. The first way that people establish a connection is by eye contact. That's just human nature. You know, that's how energies connect, because when you're staring into somebody's eyes, you're actually connecting the souls, because they say the eyes are the windows of the soul. It's very true. So what is a person supposed to do with the eyes that God gave him to see this world? Look down at the ground? I'll never forget one time when I was at a place a place long time ago where I used to go a lot, and they said to the workers there, a friend of mine used to work at this casino, and he told me, he said they gave him like human resources gave him a briefing, and this was like 6 or 7 years ago, and it said just to the men that you were prohibited from making eye contact with a woman in conversation. You had to look down at the ground. I was like, are you out of your freaking mind? And they even went even farther to say that if there's two guys sitting at a table, like at a cafeteria or a restaurant, and like 30 feet away, if some chick overhears your conversation and she feels it's inappropriate, that's sexual harassment. I mean, you could clearly see what's going on with that. You know, it's just ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. You know, I mean, eventually it's going to collapse. But this is what happens when you have social media and the internet and Instagram and TikTok telling these people, you could be whatever you want. You could be a fuzzy creature. You could be species fluid. You could be trinary, you know, non-existent human, fibrous, you know, elephant man if you want. You could be whatever you want. No, you can't. Maybe in your head, because your head's been owned and operated by the CCP. Yeah, I guess, you know, in your imagination, you could be whatever you want. But in something called reality, it's not going to fly. And that's what they can't wrap their head around, literally, because they don't live in reality, because the internet doesn't exist anywhere except on your screen. You know, without monitors, the internet is non-existent. Think about that for a minute. If you don't have a cell phone or a laptop or a tablet or an iPad or some sort of monitoring device, the internet doesn't exist, right? Or am I wrong? Don't you have to look at the internet? Or is it something that's going to be, you know, invisible? And I'm quite sure they have like 3D projections where, you know, you can actually see it in midair. Oh, they've had that for years, by the way. But still, that's still a projection that you have to monitor. You have to view it. That's not real. It's not something tangible. You know, and that very intangible disease is what's rotting your brain, telling you could be this. And I feel so sorry for these younger kids, because they're clueless. They're being led by Satanists and pedophiles, for God's sake. And what do you think they're going to do? Do you think that they're going to fill these kids' heads with things that are going to enrich their lives and make them better people and tell them the truth and tell them to go forth and spread love upon the world? Of course not. It's all propagandas and agenda, for God's sake. It's all total global domination through the proliferation of that garbage content you consume on social media platforms, which is dumbing you down and killing your brain cells and convincing you that you could be whatever you want. You know, it's just not gonna hold. It's gonna collapse at some point, and you could see it's not. You could see it's not having a footing. You can clearly see what's going on. This agenda is starting to fracture. And I mean, over the last 4 years, I've watched this country go through some just ridiculous cycles that in never in my life I would ever think that I would see this in my lifetime. That people would just become such an abomination of human indecency. I just, watching the attempt of the moral fibers of the fabric of humanity and the family structure be attempted by an outside source to be disintegrated and supplanted with some hideous, I don't even know what, embodiment of what. It's unrecognizable. You see these mothers with these newborn children going to stripping sessions, with grown men that think that they're women. And this is clearly an agenda you can see. And what this cult is trying to make you think is that you see these women with their newborn children going to these stripping sessions, what they call transgender now, but back in my day it was transsexual, transvestite. See, I don't go for labels and such. You're a human being, you're born the way you're born. Celebrate that. That's the beauty of it, but don't push it on somebody as if this is the only way. You should be confident in yourself by celebrating who and what you are. But unfortunately, back in my day, society used to ostracize people that were like that, and they used to kill them. Now, the same cult that told you 50 years ago it was an abomination in the eyes of God want to flip the script. But people don't seem to catch on that it's coming from the same place. I'm telling you, I'm old enough to know exactly where it's coming from. You know what I mean? So you were given eyes for a reason to see the world in its entirety. Everything that walks this earth, that flies in the skies, that swims in the oceans, that slithers on the ground, you were supposed to look at it. That's why the eyes are the fastest focusing lenses on earth. To see the world, to experience it, to take it in, the joy, the beauty, the wonder. Not to walk through life blinded. Now I see these guys working out in the gym, they're wearing blindfolds. I mean, for the love of God, that's where we are now. This is what it's come to. Is ridiculous. I mean, people they're not even humane anymore. They don't even look at each other anymore. I remember a lady a few weeks ago, she literally fell to the floor and she was dying. And people were walking over her while they were staring at their cell phone. Nobody bothers to help anybody anymore. And if a pregnant woman gets on a bus or a train, ain't nobody getting up giving her a seat. That was unheard of in my day. How people are so trained and programmed and conditioned to just be garbage, just useless piles of human trash. It's just disgusting, and it's a sad state of affairs to see humanity just tumble into the obscurity of just nothingness and the oblivion of just human detritus and decay, sepsis and disease, man. That's really what I see. Very few people, when you sneeze, say, God bless you. They just don't care. You could literally get hit by a car and they'll just walk past you as you're shooting blood out of your eye cavity. They just don't care. They're just too busy zombieing out on their phone. But anyway, I just wanted to bring this to, the attention of the people who watch this channel. I think it's deplorable, disgusting, it's despicable, and it's unacceptable, man. They're conditioning you to be cold and lifeless and heartless and ruthless and cruel and vicious. That's why they program you with apathy, stoicism, and violence. It's because of your internet you're plugged into. That is the hive mind collective, if you didn't know. Because your mind is now connected to that, so it becomes an extension of that energy. And wherever that source is, whatever they're filling that bucket with, is what you're drinking from. And it's satanic poison and demonic garbage. Look at TikTok. TikTok is a zoo. It's owned and operated by the Chinese Communist Party, CCP. If you don't believe me, go look it up for yourself. Go look it up for yourself. In my day, we didn't have that garbage. We had something called life, love, happiness, and actual reality. That's something that you don't have these days. Because now people are too afraid to look at each other. They're too afraid to actually tell the truth. They're too afraid to interact and mingle and socialize and gather and get together. God forbid you should accidentally brush somebody's shoulder because you're a rapist and a pedophile and a pervert. You got to throw them in jail. Oh, you're harassing me. It's just ridiculous. But this, trust me when I tell you, it's going to collapse at some point. Apps for one night stands, this hookup disposable culture, it's just ridiculous. But this is all done by design by the same clique, the same cult that's running everything. But they're about ready to be prepared for a collapse. And with it is going to go all of the garbage with it that they created just to divide this world and conquer the masses. That's really what it is. Look up the paradigm, bread and circuses. Like I always say, ever the precautionary tale of bread and circuses. This is exactly what the Romans did to the people. When a small group cannot control or conquer a larger group by sheer will or force or by numbers, what do? Psychological warfare works every time. Why? Because people don't change. Technology changes, fashion changes, industry changes, people stay the same. And it's a predictable pattern that's easily manipulated, and that's why you're controlled like a puppet. Because you're plugged into something that is conditioning your subconscious mind, that is convincing you through the power of suggestive influence that what you're receiving is the truth, so therefore you're going to make that a reality. And it becomes your reality. And that is your identity. And that's game over. That's it. But you don't even question where this source of information is coming from. The people that tell you can't say mom and dad are the people who do hideous things to infants. If you knew who they were, you wouldn't be following like a blind robot. Let this video be a wake-up call to you. I'm old school. I'm not down with this stuff. This to me is just insanity. I've never seen people so dumbed down in my life. No intelligence, no common sense, no logic, no inductive or deductive reasoning. No level of any type of proactive, autonomous intelligence. It's just devoid. They can't even count numbers anymore. Somebody gives them $1 and they have to give them change. They have to actually use their phone to calculate the change of what's left over. They can't even use their head anymore because after all, it is a smartphone, right? But unfortunately, it's smarter than most people. And that's done by design. Anyway, those are just my thoughts on this. And it's the internet that is the root cause and the culprit. Because back in the 70s when I was a kid, we didn't have none of this stuff, man. When you heard that bing, bing, that was the ice cream truck. We got excited over that. We went and swam in the pool. We went to the beach. You take trips with your family. You go to school, you come home. You do your homework. On the weekends, you watch cartoons. We didn't have video games. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have internet. We didn't have any of that garbage. It does have its pros and cons. It does have its pros and cons. Don't get me wrong. But this is the reason why they created these things. It isn't to entertain you, it's to control you. I hope you can differentiate between what is reality and what is just absolutely the disgusting illusion. The reality of it is it's designed to do what it's doing to you, deteriorate you. Okay? And the illusion is that you think it's packaged in such a beautiful way that this is actually helping you. Well, again, I'll refer to the Trojan horse. And it's the same people that had the Trojan horse many years ago that are doing this, except instead of an actual horse made of wood with a lot of guys in it, it's technology coming into your house. That's why you have all these cameras and all these things you can talk to and ask it to do things that'll shut your refrigerator off and turn your lights on, because people can't do anything anymore. Oh, and by the way, don't you see what they're doing? They're making it easier and easier and easier for you. You're being eliminated from the equation if you haven't figured it out, because AI is going to make sure of that. You're going to be obsolete then extinct. So don't think that they're making your life easier and easier and easier because they love you so much. You're being phased out of the equation. That's their plan. They don't need human beings. So, it'll get to the point where you could just lay in the bed and just think of something and it'll just come to you. And what is that? You'll just be completely static and sedentary and motionless, laying in the bed. And they're turning your home into a prison. That's why you could do everything from your home. Isn't this wonderful, ladies and gentlemen? You could just do you can shop from home. You could this from home. And you don't see they're turning your house into a prison, like a little cell? I really hope so. Anyway, I hope this video has done some good on some level to somebody somewhere. That is the intent of it. But back when I was a kid, there was none of this. None of this existed. You go to the gym, who cares? But it was mostly men back then. You really didn't see women in the gym. You saw maybe like Elaine Roberts or Jack LaLanne type thing. That was predominantly a woman's type of workout area. Men went to the gym like Gold's Gym or whatever, you know. But now, my God, man, what a zoo and a nightmare. It's a psycho circus. It's just ridiculous. Anyway, this video is a little too long, so I'm gonna cut it now. But God bless, and that's just the way it was for me when I was a kid in the '70s. We didn't have this sickness and this craziness. I feel really bad for these younger generations. They don't know what's coming. They have no idea. But you can see the writing on the wall if this is allowed to continue. But I know it won't because they keep forgetting about God as always.